this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. Today we have a group practice owner with us that has both clinicians and prescribers in her practice, and we are going to pick her brain about the journey and what that entails. Doreen Huffman, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am thrilled to be connecting with you today. So I have known of you for a very long time, and what an incredible platform to be able to learn more on the air and share you with our audience. So give us some background. Tell us about your career climb.
Yes, so I started off getting my LMHC. I went to Lesley University, got a master's there. Did what most of us do, worked in community mental health for a while, got my post-grad hours. And then, similar to other people's journeys, there's good and bad in community mental health. I certainly got a lot of experience, but I really wanted to focus more on the clinical time, a little less on paperwork. And so I figured private practice was probably the way to go. I joined a group practice first, someone else's group practice, learned a lot there. Probably would have stayed there longer, but it was a commute. So I ended up slowly starting my own practice and then networking with people, and people were like, hey, what are you doing? I want to do it too. And so initially I hadn't planned on growing as fast as I did. But the word got out, and so brought on more people and learned a lot along the way. One of the problems that I came across pretty quickly was it was really hard to find my patients' prescribers. So when people got to the point where I was like, okay, this patient could probably benefit from a psychiatric evaluation and medication management, now I need to put that referral in. And I feel like it's gotten a little better in our area in the South Coast, but it was pretty bad, especially for a while. And I was struggling. Either clients needed to also see a therapist at that particular agency in order to see a prescriber, or they just weren't taking any referrals. So I made the decision to solve my own problem by going back to school.
I love that.
Sort of took a different path, I had to go to nursing school first, which was not something I ever envisioned doing. And went on to become a nurse practitioner. And so now I'm in the role of both prescriber and therapist. I still see therapy clients, and I also have patients for just strictly med management, and just kept growing from there. So I'm definitely, happy I went to nursing school. I feel great about the whole process. It was an amazing experience. But it was a lot more work than I anticipated. I'm not going to lie.
That is so important for people to know.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's super rewarding though. If you can, if you have the luxury to do what I did, because it was so much work, and I have 2 young kids at the time, and and the whole, RN, BSN portion of it, because already being a professional, it's you can do an accelerated program, which I did. And that first year was like 5 classes plus lab plus clinicals, basically a full-time job, while I was building the practice that I had as well. So it was a lot. The master's portion, the NP portion, much more low key and doable in terms of how much time you had to put into it. Because, most master's programs are designed for the adult learner who's also working. So that was more doable. But it was really just it was a year of putting my head down, grinding it out, getting
Yeah.
through it. And I feel like, if you're motivated and you really want to do this, you can get through it just like I did, for sure. And I learned so much, really learning all of the nursing things that you don't get in either, an LMHC or an LICSW program. A lot of the kind of like biophysiology behind certain things, just, you know, the body as a whole and understanding how that plays a role in just mental health. And so, different disease processes, we see a lot of patients who have comorbidities. Mental health goes hand in hand with a lot of health problems, medical problems. So it was really valuable to have that knowledge. So
Hmm.
I definitely I recommend it if you're considering it, and you can grind it out. That first year and a half can be really difficult, but yeah, absolutely, recommend it. It was super super valuable. The downside is more student loans.
Right.
It's costly, and but yeah, absolutely. I'm really really glad I did. Um, and anybody who does it really would be happy that they did. And
Hmm.
the upside too is you get paid more. I mean, they do not pay therapists nearly what they're worth, right? I mean, you and I both know that, and so do our listeners.
That's so true.
So there is a little bonus there. You get paid more, so definitely will make some more money, but and be able to really provide your clients with just a holistic experience. Have more tools at your disposal, which is really great. And I'm a full believer that not everybody needs medication, and it shouldn't really be first line, but there are people who do need it, and being able to offer that has really been valuable. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the practice itself that you were building simultaneously while you were in this program. So what year did you start the practice?
So I started the practice in 2012.
Okay.
And while I was starting the practice, I was starting to take, a couple like prerequisites to get into nursing school. Like I took nutrition, I took biology, anatomy, physiology. There are a couple prereqs, you might need to take if you haven't already taken with
Okay.
another program at some point. So I did that, and that wasn't so bad. Very, very part time, like one class at a time. And then I actually jumped in with both feet in 2013, and then 9 months later, I got my um, BSN. Well, no, 13 months, I think, total, and got my BSN RN. And then there in my program, there was a 6 month work requirement as a nurse. So I did some psych nursing for a little bit, which was a very interesting experience too.
I bet.
And yeah, it really helps you learn a lot more about the medications by being kind of in the front lines of giving, dispensing, administering medications. And then went right into the master's program, and that was 2 years, and
Mhm.
graduated with that in 2017.
Wow. What a
Yeah.
level of commitment, not only to kind of your own goals professionally, but I really hear the sense of wanting to fill this need that you saw. But you've also shared a little bit about how you are very open to teaching and sharing and being very open. And I know that from being a part of your Facebook group. So,
Yeah.
what led you to decide to open and form a team? I mean, I'm assuming that that was probably on your mind from the outset. Is that right?
Yeah, I really did not want to do this work in isolation. And that's what I was worried about in private practice. Being kind of solo and alone and not, that was one of the really great things about community mental health, right? You're surrounded by lots of other therapists. And, aside from, your 1 hour a week or whatever of supervision with your supervisor, you have people right across the hall, right down the hall that are around. And that's so valuable to me. always learning as a provider. I'm never going to pretend I know it all, because that's when I would do a disservice to my clients. So, we always have tough cases, and the work we do is not easy. It's hard, and we should never sit alone with it. So I really wanted to surround myself with people who I just felt could help me learn and grow as a provider, and then I can help them in turn. So I always knew that I was going to have one way or another people working with me. So in the way it developed was just kind of bringing them on as part of my group, and then growing from there. And yeah, it's great. I'm a door open kind of person. In between clients, my door's open. I love when people come in and troubleshoot different things and talk about cases. And it's how we learn. It's how we grow. It's how we do the best we can to help our clients.
Oh, I love that. So, timeline and growth, how did that work? So, when did you hire your first employee, and how does that look
So
now?
it worked much faster than I anticipated. Because I wasn't planning on growing too much until I got through school, because yeah, it was a lot. I'm really blessed to be able to have my husband as my practice manager. He's
Oh, wonderful.
fantastic. And
Hmm.
so he was really an integral part of that. And I would say it's, you don't necessarily have to have, a family or a friend, or be, that involved in your practice, being a practice manager or working there. But having support along the way is so important, because it's very rewarding, but again, very stressful. So he was really helpful in, doing some of the things that I couldn't do all the time, like billing, dealing with insurance companies, and that kind of stuff. He was really helping out a lot from the beginning. Just my own credentialing, he would help, get on the phone and start asking where are we at with this, and because you have to be a squeaky wheel with them to get things
Yes.
done sometimes. And so he just self-taught how to get credentialing done, and billing and all of that stuff. So that was really helpful having him. And once I started doing private practice work, I was talking to my colleagues and friends in the field and talking about it. And they were like, hey, I kind of want to do that too. And so it started initially with just people that I had worked with and I had known, and also wanted to do private practice and wanted to kind of get out of the rat race of community mental health. And so the first couple people were very part-time and just kind of were trying to get their feet wet a little bit, see if it was even for them. And then they told people, and the word spread, and next thing you know, people, that were part of the practice were referring other colleagues, like, hey, this person's interested, do you think you have room in the practice for them? And that's how it grew. So I started in 2012. Within 6 months, I already was credentialing another provider to join me, and navigating, well, now, okay, I know how to credential myself, but now how do I credential as a group? That's different. And so, yeah, and then it just kept growing from there. Brought on my first nurse practitioner right when I graduated as a nurse practitioner. Somebody I went to school with, did some hours with my practice too. And then once I was able to, I started taking on nurse practitioner students, and teaching them as well, and had them coming on board with the practice after. And again, colleagues, word of mouth. When people enjoy working with you, they tell other people.
Yes.
And yeah, and so then that's how it happens. We have definitely on occasion put like ads in Indeed, and gotten resumes that way, and have hired a couple of practitioners that way, and a couple of therapists that way as too. But I would say most often it's either somebody I know or somebody who knows somebody who reaches out, and that's how we kind of add practitioners.
That's wonderful. So, how big of a practice is it at this point, and how many clinicians, providers, admin staff?
Yep. So there are four therapists right now. Nope, five therapists right now. We have all LMHCs at the moment, actually. We've
Yes.
had ICSWs, but all LMHCs right now. And
Okay.
we have let's see, one, two, three, four, 7 nurse practitioners and
Wow.
a psychiatrist. Uh,
Okay.
yep. And we have another nurse practitioner who has been a family nurse practitioner for years, but she's just gotten her psych certification or is about to get her psych certification and is graduating. And she's going to
Mhm.
be coming on board too. And I've been her preceptor. She's been doing her practicum with me. So, and oftentimes that's what happens. You know, I get to
Yeah.
know them, and I obviously am training them, so I know their style of practice, and then they decide to come on board if we
Mhm.
obviously if we have room for them. So yeah, it's grown, it's busy. We have 3 admin staff on site, and we also have 3 that work remotely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, one of the things that we talked about before we started recording is all the things that you don't learn when you're
Yeah.
in the program before you become a therapist.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were much more well rounded with the nursing program and continuing on. But there's still a lot of the business side of things, the marketing side of things,
Mhm.
managing insurance companies and credentialing and billing and all that that entails that we don't get adequate training for. And a lot of us have to just learn on our own. And we talked about how not everybody is forthcoming with that information. And you're really lucky if you find people that are open and willing to share. So, a lot of the people listening would be those that are considering starting their own practice or in the early stages, or maybe considering expanding to group. And so I would love to hear at this stage, looking back, what were some of the biggest lessons and challenges that you have encountered and how you've overcome those, and what tips you'd have for someone that's either in those stages and considering taking the plunge
Yes.
or expanding their solo practice?
Yeah. So, I'm glad you bring that up because, we're trained to be clinicians. We're not trained to be salespeople, marketing executives. Like, this is all stuff business. Oh gosh, if you asked me if I wanted to go into business, I would have said absolutely not. I want no part of that world. But when you go into private practice, it's a business. As much as we want to help people, it is a business. You have to make money to survive, right?
Right.
And forming a group practice is great. Like having colleagues and treating more patients is great, but it's also part of the business too, and you have to make money there too. So that is hard. I was lucky enough, like I said, to have my husband who was in sales and had done some business stuff. So he really was very helpful and taught me a lot and would do a lot of the marketing stuff too. But in the beginning, it was really kind of ground level marketing stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
we would bring cupcakes to a primary care office, and people love cupcakes. I cannot tell you how much bringing cupcakes or cookies would increase my referrals. It would
Mm-hmm.
always correlate. Like if we dropped off stuff to, some office, the increase in referrals that next week it was obvious.
Mm-hmm. So
But
don't
that's
underestimate the power
don't
of baked goods.
don't underestimate. Baked goods are very powerful. Yeah, but it works in making relationships with primary care offices and
Mhm.
other even other therapists in the community because when they are getting referrals and they're full, they might pass on referrals to you. So having those mutual relationships is great. So yeah, that was a big part of it. Learning that stuff and trying to do some of this stuff without too much cost, especially in the beginning, because when you first start out, you're not making money. You're trying to generate referrals. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's a lot that I had to kind of learn as we go, and then learning how to navigate as Facebook and social media and all of that became more a part of it because I started 2012 when that was kind of new. Learning that too. Now I have to be like a social media type of marketer, and I don't know how to do that either. So there's definitely a learning curve for sure, but having people to support you and so things like this is fantastic. This did not exist when I was starting my practice. There were no podcasts, there were no Facebook
Right?
groups, there was nowhere to turn for this information. So
Mhm.
yeah, this is definitely helpful, reaching out to colleagues and picking their brain about things and just networking. That was a big
Mhm.
part of it too. I joined a local like BNI group, business networking group, and would talk to people about my practice and share business cards and learn about their businesses, and those things are important. Going to even just going to different trainings and networking with people and spreading the word can go a long way. So I had to learn all of that at first. Insurance companies were a nightmare to navigate at first too. Even just credentialing um, was, nobody teaches you that. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I didn't even know what credentialing meant at first. No idea. I'm like, how do I get on an insurance panel? And some of the insurance companies are easier to navigate than others. I would always go to their website first, and some of them were very forthcoming with, if you want to be a provider, here's the application. Others, it's like pulling teeth to try to find just the application to even apply to become a provider. So that was all stuff that I had to investigate on my own, which
Mhm.
was not easy, and sitting on hold and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, being in the same geographic area, I can relate to everything that you're saying. It was really important for us as a practice to have accessible mental health treatment, quality treatment, but for it to be affordable. And
Yes.
for that to be the case in this area, accepting insurance was the way. And so my biggest frustration is the lack of continuity from one insurance company to another, whether it's the credentialing process, whether it's billing, how they navigate things, and the different information that you get every time you reach out, depending on who you speak to. So
Every
I
single
feel your
time.
frustration there, but you figured it out, and there are ways that we can operate that are going to prevent the likelihood of those rejections and denials, and then
Mhm.
obviously we can hire help as time goes on. So it
Yes.
sounds like having your husband with his previous experience and some business sense in sales was really helpful. You connected to some great people early on. You were really good with networking and even just the in-person personal connections.
Yes.
What are some other sources of information that you had in the beginning? Because, like you were saying, social media wasn't as big of a thing. Podcasts weren't out there. I mean, podcasts are really where I got the majority of the information to start. Hearing people that had done it, kind of giving me that confidence that this is something that was within my capacity to do. So, a lot of it sounds like, was learning by doing. What were some other major sources of information in the early stages?
I would say just paying attention when I joined a group practice.
Mm-hmm.
I got, I started by joining a group that already existed, a private group, and I learned a little bit from that. Like just billing codes. Like, I'm like, what's a billing code? You don't learn that in school. You don't learn that in community mental health. I didn't even know what codes I would use, but I paid attention to that kind of stuff
Sure.
when I was part of a group practice, and did ask some questions, and got some information there too. And I always encourage people who want to start their own practice that that's a good way to get your feet wet. Join a group and do that for a couple years. Learn from somebody else, and then kind of branch out. I've been blessed to have some amazing students along the way, some amazing colleagues that have joined my practice, and I am always upfront with them when they start. Like, how would I fault anybody for having the same ambition as me? I can't. So when they
Mm-hmm.
come on board, I always talk to them like, look, if you ever decide you want to do this on your own, please talk to me. If you ever, and people have been very upfront and have gone on and opened their own businesses, and we talk, we communicate, we still learn from each other. It's great. And I'm very proud of that I could be part of their journey. I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
important, and a great way to learn, a way I learned. I also learned some things not to do. And I won't name names, but in a practice that no longer exists that I was a part of, but that's learning too. And everybody's style is different, and I'm sure that people that went on, moved on from my practice and opened their own, could say some of the same things, like, oh geez, I kind of wanted to do it this way because I found that didn't necessarily work for me. And but that's how you learn. So yeah, I've always encouraged providers that have been part of my practice, if they have that ambition, I'm like, all right, great. So what's your plan? Do you have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 1-year plan? And while you're working with me, here are some things you can start doing as you're kind of trying to open your own practice, and being transparent, open, and kind of helping them, because there is no shortage of clients for all of us. So yeah, it's great to be able to do that. So yes, joining a group to learn the world
Mhm.
of private practice, because it is different than, community mental health, is really helpful in doing that for a year or two, or however long it takes for you to feel, confident to take that plunge.
There are so many things that you've mentioned that I feel align with how I have been operating. And so this is just no coincidence that you're on here today. So I couldn't agree more as far as someone who has the goal of starting their own practice, having that not be a hindrance to having them join. And it really is about the transparency.
Mhm.
And it's incredible when we've learned the way that we have and we have that opportunity to share our knowledge, provide those resources, help somebody be successful, avoid some of the challenges that we faced.
Mhm.
It's one of the most empowering and um, I would say transformative aspects of doing this work, because you're right, to be on any part of someone's journey like that is an honor. So it sounds like you feel the same way. So my question was going to be, what keeps you going in those moments where it is really challenging? Because it's a lot. It sounds like your plate has continually been full. There's been a lot of growth, and you're also doing a lot of these extras by bringing on students and teaching and being as open and honest as you are. And all of that takes time and a lot of patience. So, how have you been able to manage that? It sounds like you still see clients.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So, you still got a caseload as well, which is
I
important
sure
to know.
do. Yes, I sure do. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever give that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I always have a vacation planned. There is
Mhm.
always a vacation on the calendar, even if it's just a weekend getaway, an overnight. There's something on the calendar that is key to my success in life.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be a big, extravagant vacation. It could be just, a quick trip to New Hampshire or the Cape, something. There has to be
Yeah.
something on the books, because, yeah, that's how I take care of me. But aside from that, just really having good supports. This has, things like this, connecting with colleagues that are of like mind and troubleshooting things and yeah, reaching out. I mean, we've all had the moment in private practice where we're like, what am I doing to myself? Maybe I should
Mhm.
just quit doing this. This is,
Yep.
let me go work for somebody else. Because it doesn't stop. It never stops. Like it's always, your own practice is your own business. It's 24 hours a day, always, that you have it kind of in the, even if it's in the back of your mind, it's still there. So
Mhm.
it's hard. That's hard.
Yeah.
But you have so much more autonomy. You have so much more control of your schedule. You can take vacations when you want to take them.
Mhm.
It's really empowering and to have that level of independence and control. So it's so worth it. But having, really strong supports and colleagues and taking care of yourself is really important for getting through those moments where, gosh, I remember when the CPT codes changed. Were you in practice when that happened?
No.
That was a nightmare. They
Oh,
were so ready. All the CPT codes completely changed. They were ready. All the insurance companies, we're ready. There's going to be no hiccup in billing. And when I tell you it put all the billing at least 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks behind. Um, it was a nightmare.
even with
Still
the
have bills
best
to you still have
planning,
bills to
high
pay, and
stress.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's awful. I mean, it's not so bad when you have one or two outliers, claims that you're fighting for
Right.
here and there. Not so bad. You can pick up the slack with that. But when you have bills for the practice and people depending on you for their for their pay too, and
Mhm.
you have no billing coming in for 6 to 8 weeks, that was probably the closest the time I
Sure. I
came the
mean, this is why
closest to
it is
calling it quits.
recommended to have that emergency fund and
Yeah,
several months of expenses set aside. But even
absolutely.
still, it's the administrative burden, and it's on a
Mhm.
from a bookkeeping perspective and what's been
Yeah.
paid and what hasn't.
Yes.
So I feel you there, because even
Yeah.
though I wasn't in practice at that time, there have been so many insurance shifts and
Yep.
changes that have happened, and we have to constantly pivot. And
Yep.
so I guess one of my questions would be for someone who's listening and is considering adding prescribers to their
Mhm.
practice.
Mhm.
What are some of the key things that they should be mindful of? What does that process look like? How would they get started?
Yeah. So in terms of, credentialing and that kind of stuff, it's pretty much the same. You're just credentialing a different provider. It's a different taxonomy code, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. Important things to consider for sure are especially bringing on a new prescriber, meeting with them and getting a sense of what their expectations are, because
Yeah.
some providers expect that you're going to have, like, maybe like a medical assistant doing all their vitals and doing this and doing that. Well, if that's their expectation, can you afford that? Can you add that extra person? Whereas others are fine doing their own vitals. And so really understanding what their expectations are from you. What do
Sure.
they need to practice? And so that's important too. But as far as, insurance paneling and billing, it's pretty much the same. The codes are different, but it's the same otherwise.
Mhm.
Making sure in our state, our nurse practitioners do have independent practice, but not until they've had 2 years of experience under a supervisor. So understanding that, knowing kind of the rules around that kind of stuff, and if they need a supervisor, do they already have one, or are they expecting you to find them one?
Mhm.
That's definitely an important consideration. Making sure that there's capability for labs and things like that, in your EHR system. You can, a lot of times, the EHRs will integrate with certain lab companies. Like we were able to integrate Quest into ours. So if that's
Right.
something that you haven't already done, you probably want to look into, because that's going to make their life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And then making sure your EHR has a good prescription portal and does controlled substances and that kind of thing. So, that is definitely a factor. But getting those expectations up front about what they want from you as a, practice manager, is important.
Those are great tips and a great starting point for people to kind of get the gears turning and thinking about all that that entails.
Yep.
So I could continue to talk to you about this on an ongoing basis. So I'm
Yep.
definitely going to be keeping in touch. How
Yeah.
can people follow along with you guys? So plug your practice, let everybody know what the website is and how they can follow you on social media.
Yeah. So my practice is DLH Consulting and Psychiatric Services. Our website is dlhconsultant.com. And that's, you can find us on Facebook there too. DLH Consultant is the name of our Facebook.
Mhm.
And we do have, for anybody who is in private practice or considering private practice, they can certainly, request to join the South Coast Private Practitioners Group as well on Facebook, and, get some really good information there. We're always sharing, when there's like an insurance hiccup or update or something, we're
You're not
always getting on there and be
alone.
like, are you having this trouble? How'd you navigate it? It's great, especially because insurance is different in different areas, right? So like, in our South Coast area, there are some things that are unique, and you can also, get some referrals there too. So
Mhm.
definitely join us there, and, you can pick my brain there too. I'm happy to share.
Highly recommend. Well, you are such an asset to this community. I personally cannot thank you for all that you have done for the area. You guys have such a positive reputation, and for all the teaching and educating that you have done and opportunities that you have provided to
Yeah.
people to get an idea of what group practice is all about. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show and all you do.
Thank you so much. You as well. I can honestly say we have sent lots of clients your way, and they are all very, very pleased with the treatment they receive at your practice. So kudos to you as well. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.